those who have understood social media is a big part of that are starting to rise to the top. Those who are fighting it or who just don't get it are kind of falling behind. And I've even talked to artists as recently as last night who I reconnected with, a particular artist who had some music signed on the label I was at a couple of years ago. I was like, hey, how's your musical journey going? And he's like, well, I took a little bit of time away. I'm starting to get back into it, and I'm realizing how much the landscape has changed and how much of an uphill battle it's become. And I think part of that has to do with social media, right? Like it's this sort of, I call it a necessary evil. That might be offensive to you, but it's just like, it's this thing that artists have to do now. It's not just make the music, it's not just perform and get the bookings, but it's using social media as a tool to promote their art, to promote everything you're doing. So I know you're working with a lot of big brands now, but you've also spent time in the music space. You've shot massive festivals for the likes of Insomniac and things like that. So I guess my kind of first question is kind of like, from where you sit and where you're sitting and kind of your perspective on the space, talk to me about like, how is music and how is music and social media intertwined, and like, what are some of the things that artists should really be thinking about as they think about social media?
Yeah, I mean, music in general has actually kind of followed me in my entire life. I got started shooting Warped Tour and like bands in the Bay Area growing up. So it's kind of followed me forever, ironically, and then started shooting everything for Insomniac. And I've worked with a lot of DJs because of that.
Mm-hmm.
And I will tell you, artists are probably the hardest people to convince to use social media ever, because you have someone like me, a creative, telling another creative that they need to do this other creative thing. And as a creative, you're stubborn and you're like, no, I'm not going to do that because it's not my idea.
Mm-hmm.
And the most common thing I've heard from like DJs, especially, is they'll be like, well, why do I have to do social media? Fisher and Calvin Harris and all these big DJs didn't have to do it. So why do I have to do it? And my response is, well, times have changed. Like you could have the best track in the world, but if you don't have, any traction on it or social media or pushing it out somehow, like how are people going to see it? Everyone's making music now. And because of COVID, everyone's a DJ.
But there, I would argue a little bit. I mean, Calvin Harris, sure, he got big. He had some radio hits and some pop hits, and like working with Rihanna and things like that. So like that helped his career, right? But Fisher is of the newer generation of artists too, and I would always see videos of him being a fool. But I'm sure you got a different perspective on that.
Well, yeah, he was always kind of a fool and stuff, but that's the thing. He wasn't. I don't know. For him specifically, I think he was like the first artist, I think, right, to get like nominated for a Grammy for his song Losing It, I believe, like in the, electronic world. And so that kind of like pushed the electronic music more to the top. I don't know. I just use him as like kind of like the start, because you're right. He is still part of the newer world. But after him, I felt like it's been harder for artists to just magically blow up. Right.
Yeah.
And there's like specific artists who crush it on social media and it's helped them.
Yeah. So the Fisher case, I guess, he maybe I would take back the full act of fool part, although he's got this goofy, he's built a brand on that sort of like goofy, like always laughing at the camera. He's got the flick thing going when he DJs, and obviously his music is it's always a hit. Like every song he puts out just always gets big. I think there are definitely some artists who probably can thank their career. Give a big thank you to social media. One that comes to mind for me is Mochak. And I remember seeing, he did a Circle set not too long ago. And if anyone out there knows Circle, it's, these amazing performances by DJs all around the world. And then they interview the artist after, and he talks about social media. And I just remember, even before, I never fully embraced TikTok, or it took me a while to do it. But like, I remember seeing his TikToks. It's like it was shot from the crowd. It wasn't the behind the DJ view. It was shot from the crowd. Very like energetic. He's just doing something. I just thought he was this random DJ, but he ended up blowing up. He also makes his own songs too. And he talks in this interview with Circle about how he owes a large part of his career to social media. So who else have you seen do it really well, and who can thank their careers in part to social media?
I mean, one that does really well right now is Justin J. I know that we've talked about him before, but he's the whole point of being, doing social media and being an artist is like the days of like promo videos are over. Like, okay, nobody cares about this intricately shot thing. It's all about the personal content, and like telling a story. And Justin Day does a really good job of like taking videos and then putting text on top that it's relatable and it's like at a house party or you're like, oh my gosh, I can't, watch till the end. John Summit joins me for this house party. A surprise. I don't know. It feels very personable and fun.
Mhm.
And I've also noticed on that topic alone, a lot of DJs have been doing a lot of like pop up sets at like beaches and random like coffee shops in the middle of the night and random places around the world. And then they're making content on top of that. Like What So
Mhm.
Not does a lot of that. Felix Cartel, all good friends of mine too. Like they all do these like pop up type of events that also curate good content. Whoa, relax, Mike.
Name
Um,
dropping some of her DJ friends, everybody. Yeah,
throw me
actually,
away.
I was on YouTube. I don't know, and the related videos. I see Blondish playing at Joe's Pizza in New York City, and then
Right.
she's really good at content too. Yeah, I think
Yeah.
I love Justin J. I have a personal affinity for him. Funny small side story. I was living in Boston, and Justin J played like on a Wednesday night there because that's how Boston is. The big DJs come on like a Wednesday night. And my buddy Ken, who I'm now living with in Denver, he lived in Cambridge, walking distance from the venue. And we're like, hey Justin, we're gonna have an after party if you want to come by. And we go back to his place, hanging out, minding our own business, knock on the door, and Justin J just shows up and he's like, hey, I'm here for the after party. But I mean, I describe Justin J's sets as a house party.
Mhm.
I've seen him play it like cross up against Carl Cox was playing and Justin J was playing, and I went to Justin J's set, and it was just like a bar mitzvah. It was so much fun. It was like it was amazing music. But like just watching he opened for Fred again
I
here.
was just about to
Yeah,
say,
yeah. So he
because
opened
of
for
social media.
yes, he opened for Fred again last week here in Denver, 2 nights at this giant arena, the Ball Arena, and Fred hit him up to open for him, and it's not only I think because of Justin's music and his content and the fact that he's just like he's so about his fans. He does production classes, like he wants the next generation of artists to be successful, but Justin leads by example. And then Justin's posting these like emotional, like, oh my God, I just got asked by Fred to play
Yes.
this show. And it's so cute. And I love it because Justin J, in my opinion, he's been around forever. He's part of like the old Dirty
Mhm.
Bird, crew and all that. So
Yeah.
great example. Who else? Who else?
I mean, he was already big before, but I think it's a really good example. Diplo. Diplo is a
Mm-hmm.
great example of someone who has been making music for fucking ever, and I'm sorry if
Mm-hmm.
I'm swearing, but literally forever and is producing forever, but he's also so up to date with social media. His social media is really, 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 really good because it's not just music and it's not just him like acting cool. He's like being personable. He's like, here's Diplo's Run Club. Oh, I went to Alaska. Oh, I went here. Also Burning Man. Oh, I know you're making fun of me at Burning Man. Like he's so in with the inside jokes on the internet that it's like really awesome because the more
Yep.
personal you can be and tie it with music, it's just like a win, 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 win.
I agree. And that also just brought up memories of Dylan Francis, who,
Obviously. Yeah.
they're two peas in a pod, Dylan Francis and Diplo. But like Dylan Francis used to use YouTube and like do these things
Mhm.
with like Taco Bell and like just hilarious skits, and he still does it. For as big
Mhm.
as Dylan Francis has gotten, he's still promoting his music. He's still doing hilarious skits. He's, because you have to stay on the treadmill. We
Relevant.
call it the technology treadmill. That was like a term in my college classes, but like you have to stay on the treadmill. You have to keep up. Our good friend Rami London Bridge,
Oh
from
yeah.
Space Yacht.
Mhm.
He's been doing a really good job of posting content all across the board. But he did call out one, I think it was last week or recently, where he was shouting at artists, being like, "Guys, look, Moby, who is a legendary, dance music artist, producer, is posting about how he made this track
Mhm.
years or decades ago and showing his vinyl collection, showing how he put it together. And he's like, Moby does not need to be doing this, but he's doing
Yeah.
it, and you should too. And that was the message, and I really, really admired that.
You know what other artists are killing it outside of electronic music too are a lot of like the Warped Tour punk rock bands because
Mm.
like emo music has made a huge comeback now that the older millennials can afford concerts. Anyway, but like Simple Plan, Papa Roach, all these like and Nickelback. Oh my god, Nickelback's been so funny, but they all have been. And Avril Lavigne has been crushing it on social media as well. But it's smart. Doesn't matter how big they were. It's a matter of like times have changed and if you're a smart music artist, you're going to get with the times changing. And if, your audience and new audience, like Gen Z is still going to be people that listen to you as well. Like
Hmm.
they're on TikTok and stuff. And if you're part of the trends, it keeps going up. But I see all those emo bands posting stuff everywhere. It's so amazing.